Welcome everybody back to episode 22 of This Pickleball Life with Jilly B and K Dubs. We have a thick pod for you today. We're going to talk about the merger between the PPA and MLP. Who is truly winning here? We've got MLP Atlanta. Which players got in a fight and who was taunting Riley in the finals? Not to mention MLPalooza and the Jilly Bees, and of course, my own parody pickleball song explaining the entire merger. So with that, let's get to pod number 22 with the world of pickleball stuck back together just like glue. Hit it!
You're tuned in now to This Pickleball Life. I'm K-Dubs and Jilly B is my wife. She's the pro and I've got the filler. She's sweet to me, but on the court she's a killer. Unadulterated and efficiently bringing you the best and worst things in PB. Tell your friends and stay for another. And no one loves us more than your mother. One thing's for sure, one hit and you're addicted. Grab a pile, grab a court, don't resist it. So click subscribe, let's go, let's get cracking. Theme song done, let's go, let's get laughing. This Pickleball Life.
So, Jilly, pretty slow week in pickleball, huh? These last couple weeks were real sleepers. It's going to be a quick pod. Nothing to talk about, hey?
Nothing to talk about.
So let's get into it real quick. We do have an injured member of our Mexico party, our Mexico fiesta in the Baja at Tres Palapas. So we are room for two, correct?
Correct. We are going to Mexico, Baja, Mexico, October 16th through the 18th. Actually, we'll be there
Very
longer,
important.
but doing a 3-day Jilly B Masterclass 16th through the 18th. We have a couple injured parties, last minute backed out. This is at the magical Tres Palapas, which is literally, you guys, pickleball heaven. So if you're not coming on the Jilly B trip in a couple short weeks, you better get your butts over to Mexico soon, because this place is like tequila, pickleball, and beach.
Repeat.
Repeat.
Don't forget KW's ukulele. So that's the real reason to get your butt to Mexico.
True.
Working on my my like beachy vibe playlist with my Jimmy Buffett and my like Jack Johnson. Get on the beach, get some curry, get a beer in your hand. Zach Brown band. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good stuff. And just reach out to us via email
At thispblife@gmail.com if you're interested in learning more about the Mexico trip. So 2 more spots.
Yeah, give us 2 interesting details about yourself and what your duper score is. But also baby's first steps. I took a couple of real live 1 foot on 1 foot steps. Super excited to be off the crutches, although I did bring a crutch.
Sorry, but this was actually happening at the same time as truly baby's first steps, my niece Abigail taking her first steps. And it was really like, you know, coming down to the wire there. Was it going to be Kristin taking her first steps again or the baby? I think you guys took first steps on the same day.
I mean, in my case, I'm like trying to be protective, not like push it too soon. They say, oh, you're going to feel better, but you're not better. Like protect. So I had my brace on all week. Abigail took a couple nose dives. Like we were really going neck and neck there on the walking front. But yeah, really excited for her to get that exploratory.
Speaking of my niece and my sister, we've had a ton of people ask how the progress is going with my sister's pickleball, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to say we've also had a new member of the niece and nephew family.
Oh, well, that is true.
I now have a nephew too. So call me at Kiki. Let's go. But back to Abigail
and
mom,
my sister Natalie. Yes. So we've been training together. If you've listened to our previous podcast, I'm trying to get her in shape to be a decent pro partner for me next year. I mean, what a dream, right? We never got to play together at Pepperdine because we missed each other by 1 year. We played some junior tennis together. And
despite the fact that you skipped 2 grades, you still couldn't get close enough.
I needed to skip 3.
Yeah.
Or she needed to get held back.
Totally.
But yeah, you know, as happens in relationships and families, there's been a little bit of a setback. And we were playing at Los Cab 3 weeks ago. And I think much to Maggie Brasha's absolute and utter horror and chagrin, my sister and I were like throwing profanities out at each other and about to kill each other on the court playing against Gina Arikina and Maggie Brasha. So after
it's just their love language.
It's our love language is fighting. And after that day, we have taken a 3-week hiatus from playing on the same court as each other. Don't worry, we talk about it all day long still, pickleball. And she's coming to the desert next week. We're going to train, and I'll be curious to see kind of her new tricks in the past month of like we did like a purposeful decoupling where she just needed to go out and play, I think, with some other people. Totally. This is a good lesson for everyone at home.
The 1/3.
The rule of 1/3. So tell us about the rule of 1/3.
Yeah, and this is especially true in any sport where you're hitting with a person, right? So in golf, your challenges depend more on the golf course, not the people you're playing with. But in a racket sport, you should play with people 1/3 better than you.
Yeah.
1/3 of the time, in other words, with people better than you. 1/3 of the time with people about your level, and 1/3 of the time with people worse than you. So tell us what you practice in each of those thirds.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you can practice when you're playing with people a third below your level, new skills, like things you would be too intimidated to do playing with people above your level. You could practice patience, impatience, like kind of whatever you feel like you
code
need.
Switching, like your sister was saying today, playing with your mom versus like a pro guy. She's ripping it as hard as she can if she wants. And then, let me reset at my mom so I don't bruise her leg.
Yeah. I mean, there's always something to be had playing against a banger. Like I always say, to beat a banger, bang it back, right? But maybe go practice resetting every ball. Like, because if you're playing with people a third below your level, maybe they're just trying to hit everything as hard as they can. Totally. But you can find practice in something like that as well. And then when you're practicing a third right at your level, well, maybe you practice like not so much different shots, but maybe different strategies. Maybe you're playing the right when normally you play the left. Maybe you're working on unwinding the stack. Like, there's always something to be gained from each of these levels of play. And then when you're playing a third above your level, work on finding like calmness. Don't feel like, oh my gosh, I don't belong here. Work on feeling like you belong.
Bringing that 1/3 below attitude,
right.
I'm the big boss,
yes,
to the court with the other people. I mean, we even saw Rachel Rohrbacher in the finals, which we'll get into in a sec, just ripping it right at Riley. Like he was just anyone in the world, and it was working.
And so I think my sister Natalie's come a long way doing this a third, and I'll be curious to see her performance next week.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to get into the theme of the day.
It's the theme of the day.
The reunion of the tours, the coming back together after the war. But as a brief interlude, for those of you who need a quick debrief, I'm going to play my brand new parody song explaining everything you need to know about the war of pickleball.
Well, Taylor Swift wrote it and sang it.
Yeah, so here it is.
Remember when they broke up the first time? Dundon said we gotta lock 'em up. It's wise, sign up all the players to a deal, a 3-year, and we're doing teams. Vibe. Then in the fall of 22, they say, I think it's really best we get along. Maybe 24 teams should be enough. We'll have 2 leagues, 1 draft, Dundon and Kuhn. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Tim Parks called it a Cold War, but ooh. 6 months, looks like it's all working when we are never, ever, ever getting back together. We are never, ever, ever getting back together. Steve called up the lawyers, talked to owners, got big T, 'cause we are never, ever, ever gonna vibe together. Like ever. The pickleball fans were all aghast. Can't we just get all our favorites back at last? But they just kept signing players more and more, saying, look at all our players, they're much cooler than yours. Ooh, 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 ooh. They got Ben and Anna Lee, but ooh, 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 ooh. Ben said, it's only for a 1-year deal. Most seem to think that this was forever over, but some still would say, never say never.
So Connor keeps tweeting, like, big signings down the stretch. And I'm like, another college tennis player? Great job, buddy. We got J-Dub and Dylan and 98 others.
We are never, ever, ever getting back together. We are never, ever, ever.
Wait, did you see that? last post?
Just like that, these times are coming back. Thought it was done, but I guess it's never really over. Just because it's over doesn't mean it's really over. And if I think it over, maybe you'll be coming over again. And I'll have to get over you all over again. There ain't nobody better. Oh, baby, baby, we belong together. Nothing to hide. Believe what I say. So here I am with open arms, hoping you'll see what your leg means to me. Open arms. Reunited and it feels so good. Reunited 'cause we understood. There's one perfect fit, and sugar, this one is it. We both are so excited 'cause we're reunited. Hey,
So I hope you enjoyed the song. Hope it wasn't nails on a chalkboard. And I just had to do it. You know, we were talking about all the things leading up to this, and I was like, oh my god, I have the perfect brainstorm. This is the song. We are never getting back together. And I wrote it before they got back together, knowing full well that it was highly likely that it was going to be that ironic. So
It was awesome.
I had fun creating that song, and I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, so they're back, and we're back.
I know.
Probably all for the best. Would you agree?
Well, so PPA and MLP have merged as true equals. A sidebar, when I found out it was LeBron James SC Holdings that led the investment round and helped facilitate this merger, that's obviously my team, the New York Hustlers. And I was like, I knew it. I freaking knew it. I knew they were the ones.
I was voting on Mark Lazary. We were told that was not the case, but I still felt like that made a lot of sense.
Oh, man. And so my initial reaction being, I knew it was SC Holdings, followed by my next reaction, I didn't buy a Vibe sweatshirt. I knew I should have bought a Vibe sweatshirt.
You can.
Followed by me feeling like, okay, we were right. The oracles continue, because we have said on the pod, that we agreed with Tom Dundon's view of all of this, which was, this is kind of silly because we're going to end up in the same place. It's just going to take a lot more time and cost us a lot more money.
Yeah.
He was right about one of those things, costing a lot more money.
Yeah, but timing.
The timing was quick. Much quicker than I
shocked.
Anticipated, much
But
quicker than we did
I'm
anticipate.
sure they
so we're
all-
not full oracles, because we did get that piece, I would say, not perfect.
I'm sure they all just felt like, hey, we have to really get this nailed down before Atlanta. And kudos to everyone involved in that remerger, because they pulled it off. And there was that brief moment where we thought that Lawrence Stratman and Julian Arnold were maybe not going to come, and they both showed up and they both played. And
so I think what's interesting here is, who won, right? Did MLP win? Did the PPA win? Did they both win? And I think the answer is the players.
The players. Yeah, the payday.
But in addition to the players, I would say, well, let's talk about the players for a second. I mean, league revenues to player salaries are grossly out of line. I think you'd be hard pressed to find an equivalent example in any other pro sports league where there is such a misalignment in the league and tour revenues to what now the players are being compensated. I did talk to 4 of the 5 new board members of the new entity within 24 hours of the merger being announced. And my question was the same for each one, which is, how committed are we all to really making this happen? Like, how is this different than what happened before the other alliance? And the answer is extremely committed. Yeah. This is different. Everything about it feels different. The deal is truly a merger of equals, whereas before it was kind of that Cold War truce, more of an alliance versus a true merger. Because remember, in the last deal construction, MLP was not getting any percentage of PPA or DCP, Dundon Capital Partner entities like Pickleball Central, Pickleball Tournaments, PickleballBrackets.com. This was This was very one-sided.
Give us a chunk of you, and you
can have our players.
Yeah.
So I think really MLP won this. And if there's going to be a Harvard Business Review case study one day, I think the PPA made 3 mistakes. They did too strong of a deal for themselves in that first merger, right? We always talk about the best deals leave both parties feeling, right, like they both won. And I'm not sure MLP...
Or they both lost.
Yeah, I'm not sure MLP ever really felt like they had won anything that first deal around.
Yeah.
Two is... they gave up their players before the merger was really consummated.
Yeah,
so they
I was going to say that was the one chunk that they did win in this not equal merger is they got the players right away.
They gave the players away too soon. That gave
those players a reminder or a taste of like, oh, this MLP thing, I think I do like it and I do want to be a part of it. And we saw some flip-flops of some PPA players that did get signed with MLP more so than the other way around. And I don't know that would have happened had they not gotten that taste, right?
I totally agree with you.
And of course, if they had not had that 6 months or 3 events, and instead PPA was like, okay, once it's signed, but until then we're having their own vibe events.
Yeah.
Like this could have all been a very different
different landscape. And then I think the third mistake was signing players like crazy, the PPA saddling themselves to debt essentially to compete in this player arms race when, Tom Dundon always said, he was in the star making business. He wanted a small tour. He felt like he had too many players as it was very public about that. I'm not sharing anything that kind of hasn't already been said. And I don't understand why the PPA felt like they needed to compete so hard when they were able to secure Ben and Anna Leigh and other core stars. And there is so much more and new talent coming on the scene, and we'll talk about that later. So I think all it really achieved was fighting MLP's game, playing their rules and saddling themselves to debt.
Totally. This kind of reminds me of one of my friends telling me once that if you truly had an unlimited budget and you went to a blackjack table and every time you lost, you just doubled your bet, like the odds are with you that eventually you'd catch back up, and that if they feel like, hey, we can afford these budgets, so why not? I will say in regards to your earlier comment about like unprecedented, is there any comparison? What do we always go back to? Go back to the well, MLS.
MLS, always.
MLS lost, guess how many millions of dollars in their first 5 years?
Hundreds.
250 million.
Yeah.
So
wow.
I didn't look at exactly what their player salaries were at that point, but we know that when Beckham came over, he was making very much less than he could have in Europe, but it was still like 6 million.
Yeah, but it might be, but you have to look at I'd be curious to see what the league revenues were, right?
They were
not
obviously
just
filling the stadiums to some extent. I don't think they were sold out, but there were definitely people showing up for it and paying for tickets. But definitely there is a precedent for spending a lot of years in the red. And
of course, what I think is so interesting there are players who are frustrated that they took the lower offer from MLP. As I said on our last podcast, I took a 25% lower offer from MLP. Now I don't sit here and cry over spilt milk and go, oh, that's not fair. PPA offered me more. That's total, that's so unfair. And I don't do that because I've been a business person my whole life. I've run companies. Like, I negotiated my deal. There's nobody to blame but myself. Just take responsibility. Be stoked that you're making
it's still
an ungodly amount of money for playing pro pickleball.
Exactly.
So I think it's so funny when I hear about like player sit outs or players complaining because they didn't get as much as their friend who negotiated a different deal. It's like, grow up. Welcome to the real world.
Yeah. And hopefully you have a good agent and that is their job. Yeah. So what's interesting to me about the merger is the new board includes Dundon, of course, who owns the Seattle Pioneers, Steve, of course, who is the founder of MLP, Brian Levine, the former CEO interim, who is still a strategic advisor, and a very close friend of Dundon. And then it's Jason Stein from New York Hustlers and Al Tilas from DC. So it is all MLP people except for Dundon. So
Well,
it shows how much he trusts what we're dealing with. And obviously, like I said, Brian is a close friend of his.
Yeah.
And
Brian
I think
wasn't neutral party.
That was a big part of making this happen, luckily for everyone. But
so what could some formats
definitely.
for events look like next year based on what you've heard?
Yeah, I think with the fact that they're trying to do more events, but they want to retain the impressiveness of the feeling of how MLP is this year with 6 events, you're going to start to see these sort of smaller events that feel a little bit more like Pickleball Night in America, where it's like home and home, so to speak, where it's just 2 teams playing each other. And maybe we have like a simultaneous three different places where 2 teams are meeting each other throughout the week. And we might see stuff combined with PPA events where it's like the Sunday or Monday following or the Wednesday or Thursday prior. Everyone gets their kind of like head-to-head matches done, and then that builds up to some kind of finals a la NBA, where the top scoring teams with the most points make it to some kind of major. Yeah. And we probably have 2 or 3 or 4 of those periodically throughout the year, and then a super final is what I would imagine, and then building on what I have heard whispers of, but no one's like really committing to anything.
And then super exciting, I finally figured out a way to get drafted to a premier team, and that was the removal of the Challenger League completely. Thought you'd like that. So now
right after they wrote the Jill Braverman rule, you have to like accumulate points to qualify for premier.
Yeah, Rachel Rohrabacher's stoked they implemented that rule for after.
Totally.
Which was this rule that, like, you know, you'd have to have a certain amount of points that you've earned in Challenger before you could get brought up to Premier. But as we just said, there is no more Premier and Challenger for next year. There's no promotion relegation. It's just 24 or, you know, a set number of teams, period. And I mean, this harkens back to, again, Oracle of PB, Kristin. We called Steve Kuhn actually July 25th. In
Denver, right?
In Denver, July 25th. Right after the draft, and we said, hey, this notion of Challenger and Premier, I think was necessary a year ago. Yeah. But now the talent field is so deep, it just doesn't make sense. And you're diluting and diminishing. Nobody wants to
be on a Challenger team, and nobody wants to say they're a Challenger team. And it was a compelling narrative, right? Like, make it up and the promotion relegation, and like,
it was very compelling. But imagine being the 25th, like you could say at that point, since I'm the first picked female in Challenger, I'm the 25th ranked female pickleball player in the world. Okay. Imagine being 25 in something and you're like, yeah, I'm not in like the big leagues. I'm in like the kind of big leagues. Like, even just explaining it's tough. And if you look at the promotion relegation system in for soccer, right, which is what this was modeled after, how many teams are there?
26, 24? What did I say?
No, there's 1,000.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about MLS
teams. No, it's okay.
So on MLS. But yeah, in Europe, there's like 72 teams in the top 4 levels. And there's 7 levels. And then it's like sub-levels of that region.
So you have literally thousands of players. There's so many teams. There's so many levels to it all. So it makes sense if you have that many teams and that many players. I think then it makes sense. Yeah.
But and for it wouldn't have worked with a snake draft. I think that's the most important thing, is they had to come up with a way to get rid of the snake draft without making people feel like it wasn't fair. So here's my thought, is that if they want to retain the rest of this season meaning anything for anyone, let alone last season, other than like, it's nice that they, have big prize money and they're paying more than a normal event and it's exciting. But if they want to make these points actually mean anything, at the end of the year, they need to reward the teams that did the best this year by giving them some kind of status in the free agency. Right. But in a snake draft where you went 1 through 24 and then 25 and up, and the first pick got the 48th pick? Would that be? Yeah. That makes some really weirdly lopsided teams. Yeah. Now, instead, we're actually going to probably see a concentration towards certain teams with cachet, and certain teams with less cachet are going to have a harder time, like so-called recruiting certain players. So you're probably going to end up with some teams that like allocate a ton of their funds to a very top player and then have 3 very lower players. And then some teams are going for more balance. So they'll like purposefully not go for a, say, Riley or a Tyson or a Ben, and instead try and find that middle ground. So we're going to see some very different kind of so-called draft strategies than what we've talked about in the past with the MFFM and and what order you pick.
And I wonder how many
your players.
teams, if it'll be 24, if they're going to sell more. You know, when I was doing some research on NFL, NBA, MLS, and of course MLP, something they all have in common, that at least the NFL, NBA, MLS have in common is 30 to 36 teams. The NBA's 30, the NFL's 32, MLB's 30, MLS is 29, and then you have MLP at 24. So if we are moving to this notion of, hey, it's just one league, I think we could definitely have more teams. And I think the talent depth is absolutely there. And we're going to talk all about the depth in Challenger and what I just went through at MLP Atlanta personally in a little bit.
So real quick, I did want to mention, the Jilly Bees making it to the super final or the finals in the MLPalooza. Sorry, did I jump the gun?
You jumped the gun.
But I wanted to connect it to the fact that on our team, if you listened before, we know we had Sanjay, aka Sanj, which we found out was because her brother's nickname for her was Sanj, as in short form for Sandra. So it all makes sense.
Oh, that's great. That's like how I couldn't say
from.
Natalie as a kid, so we call Natalie Naughty.
And
shout out to Sanj for being an absolute badass. She brought it. The attitude, the skill. Like, she played singles great.
I brought everyone headbands, and they were wearing them every match. That had like black and white stripes, like a bumblebee.
We'll flash a photo here for you guys.
Yeah, it was super, super fun. Props to Steve Kuhn for coming up big in the Dreambreaker against one of our formidable foes, the Dill Pickles, which were tied with us for the top duper seed.
As Brian Levine said, this mathematically does not make sense. How did we just lose? It's because Steve Kuhn laid down the hammer.
Totally.
Tim
he said
Klitsch
that didn't make sense.
it.
I said we had the same duper, so what do you mean? Plus way cooler headbands. This was math, but chemistry and math. Whew.
I sent Brian a text after, and I was like, oh, I heard about your loss, because I wasn't there that morning. It was an early morning match, and I was getting ready to obviously play my match. But Coach Kristin was there, and so I sent Brian Levine, again, Brian's former interim CEO of MLP, and now he's one of the 5 board members. I sent him a text that said, heard about your loss to the Jilly Bees in the Dreambreaker. My heart is absolutely just broken for you. I heard that you mentioned mathematics. Mathematics didn't make sense, but it's just really hard to account for chemistry and team leadership.
Totally.
But
We're
I saw him later
into that in a second.
Saw him later and gave him a hug. I just had to give him some crap.
Totally. He loves it.
No, he's so great. He has the best attitude.
But
we were laughing.
Being that on our Jilly Bees team, we had Sanj, who was the representative of the new announcement that got kind of buried in the news the last 2 weeks.
MLP Australia.
Mm-hmm. They basically just did 4 teams just to proof of concept, throw it out there, make it happen. And they brought 2 representatives to kind of study up this week and see how everything looked and felt. But really exciting to see some MLP action internationally. It'll be interesting to see if some American-based players end up going over there to play. We're going to have all of Oceania as part of that league. So right now it's 4 teams, but they're quickly expanding to 12, and it's going to be all the way up to Japan and all the way down to New Zealand. You know more than I do. There's going to be some cool regions to be representing over there.
That's
and I know we've got
cool.
some really enthusiastic Asian players coming up the duper ranks. So I'm really excited to see them in person and have a purview into how the level raises there. Because I know when you watch the English players that we've seen, you could definitely see a very large disparity right now. But as these contracts come up, more and more talented folks are going to start jumping on board. And next thing you know, Olympics.
I have to give props also to Tim Klitsch, the owner of the Texas Ranchers, who was on our team. He did an incredible job. A great singles player, great doubles player.
What a teammate.
Really decorated tennis player. And David Grossman, the controller for MLP, who was our number 1 player and just totally stepped up, did so great. Wow, he has pro level flat drives.
He's the controller of MLP, and he was the controller of the points.
Yeah, the controller of the Palooza. And also I have to give a huge shout out to you, Coach K. I only showed up for the last 30 minutes of the match on the first day because I had 3 matches on Thursday. you were there Friday, and then we were both there Saturday to coach, right?
Totally. It was so much fun. I mean,
you did great.
I love obviously coaching, and I love pickleball, and I love people. So there was a win-win-win for me. And I was very much a part of the drafting process, so I had a little bit at stake there. And we won $1,000, didn't we?
We won $1,000, which I'd love to donate back to Major League Pickleball Cares.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Which is the not-for-profit arm of MLP.
Absolutely, yes. A lot of boats to keep afloat in the MLP camp.
One more funny story about MLPalooza, and then we're going to talk about actual MLP Atlanta. We were playing Brooks Wiley's team. Brooks Wiley's team. He's the commissioner of MLP, and I think on paper we were supposed to lose that. And at one point I was like, okay, what am I like really feeling about watching this match? And all that was running through my head was like, we cannot lose to anyone who's drop serving.
It wasn't going through your head. You did say it out loud.
And then I said it out loud and said, team, we are not losing to Brooks's drop serve. And that was really like the tide changer in that match. And we won that match.
I mean, Brooks is like the Zane of drop serves. He literally drops it from like full reach above his head, like he's putting something on the upper shelf.
Brooks's drop serve is like artistic. It's got a flair. It's artisanal.
Yeah. No, hey, it's working for him, but not enough.
But it was a really fun event, and thank you to Brian Levine, who chairs the kind of MLPalooza event, as well as the others.
And just props to the system. I mean, obviously, a lot of these people we didn't have like true dupers for, but like we went through this draft process and we went to Dream Breakers like almost every match, not just us, but like the other teams. So we had a lot of really close matches, and it's just proving how great this format is and how much fun it is.
So before we jump into MLP Atlanta and my team and how we did and all the kind of inner workings of that and the inside scoop, I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Bemer. Bemer is a pulsed electromagnetic field device, PEMF. It is the groundbreaking technology that has been a miraculous recovery device for Olympic athletes and has helped so much people who are going through surgery by helping increase your blood flow at the capillary level anywhere you use the device. And Kristin, and this is a real story, Kristin had surgery on her knee at your 2-week checkup with your doctor.
Wow.
He said, you are at a recovery phase that I would expect from someone at 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And you were Beemering every single day with the wrap. And by the way, I'm Beemering right now on this podcast. This is what it looks like. I just have my knee, which has been bothering me, wrapped. And I'm sitting here doing nothing. And
really cool. They include a device that basically like senses the frequency coming out. So you can see that it's actually doing something, but it is kind of an interesting therapy compared to, say, Air Relax, which is like compression. You're feeling it.
You feel it.
The thing about a Bemer is it's under your skin, it's deep, and you feel the effects very like subtly and down the road. But once you really get in the habit, it's like you're kind of warming up and building up, and you just get better and better. And basically the video they show is like, if you imagine like a dirty like plumbing issue after Drano goes through in your veins. So it's literally like Drano for your veins. For your veins.
Okay, I didn't tell you this.
Flow, baby, flow.
So I forgot to tell you this, but I was talking to my brother, Aiden, Natalie's husband, my brother-in-law.
Knows a thing about blood.
Yeah, he knows a little bit about blood, being an interventional cardiologist. And I was telling him about what the Bemer device does. And he says, as an interventional cardiologist, he does that. Like, he actually doesn't, but other ICs do. So IC being interventional cardiologist.
Oh, like he's doing the surgical version of what the Bemer effect
exactly
causes.
So he will go in to people's veins and pipe clean, not their hearts,
their veins,
like in their leg, in their knee, to
ones,
free up and unclog that. So literally what people pay interventional cardiologists to go and do for pain relief and recovery, this is what Bemer does. Anyway, so I wanted to give a shout out to them because A, thank you for helping me get through injury-free Atlanta. And B, we have a special running on our podcast. So if you are interested in learning more about Bemer, you can email thispblife@gmail.com and get yours today.
Yeah. And well worth it. On to the big stuff.
Okay.
MLP Atlanta.
There's a lot to talk about here.
Lots of steps in Atlanta.
You did great.
I hope that steps were a good part of my physical therapy because my physical therapist has not had me do steps yet, but I did them.
I think the real win here is you did not hurt your knee walking up and down the stairs at the Lifetime Atlanta.
It's funny because I kind of felt like a high school senior who like every 5 seconds someone's like, where are you going to college? What are you good? And every 5 seconds someone's like, oh my God, your knee, what happened? And I had to have like a 30-second elevator pitch to explain what happened to my knee and what am I doing? But
I will say the best part so far of your knee has been the pre-boarding on our flights to and from Atlanta because you're in the wheelchair, which is true. You really can't walk that much. And you have your crutch.
Let alone carrying stuff. That's the biggie.
And that was the first time I felt like any positives with your knee surgery. Sorry.
I know, to be honest, the handicapped parking we were getting was from your mom anyway.
Yeah, we didn't even like apply for that.
I felt better about it, but
so funny. But on to MLP
Atlanta.
On to MLP Atlanta.
Hustlers.
I played my signature paddle actually, and I haven't really talked much about that, but I got shipped to me super secret a couple weeks ago my Jill Braverman signature paddle. It's a 13 millimeter, so thinner, thermoformed paddle, gritty as heck. So all the things I loved about my Move in 16 apply to my 13, except now I've got even more feel over it because it is that thinner profile. Touch. I've always loved playing a thinner paddle. So I was really, really happy with how I played with it, especially because it was so last minute getting used to it. I'm still playing around with the weights. I didn't hit my third shot drops great. I think that's just because the weights, again, playing around where I want them, but I didn't need to hit that many third shot drops, to be candid, because I was playing with someone named Jaume, Martinez, Vich, and one day we're gonna look back at this podcast and be like,
remember when no one knew who Jaume was?
So you've heard it here first. Jaume is the next Tyson. He is as electrifying in the way he plays. His personality is one of a kind. He is funny. He is self-deprecating, but he still has that like, I'm the boss swagger. He trash talks, but it's like cute. Like it's fun. Like
it's lovable.
It's so lovable. Like he wants to win and he's so fiery, and we were chirping so much and getting so like chest bumping and screaming. He's Spanish. He's a Spaniard. And we were just like loving every second of it. And
people kept mispronouncing his name and asking me how to pronounce it. And I just was like, just call him Papi. Yeah, every 5 seconds he's like, "Ay, papi! Oh, who's your papi now?"
He would do something good, like, "Ay, papi!"
We actually have a cool
two peas
video
in a pod.
We're gonna do. I know. But I was loving the Jilly B paddle, but there's one shot I wished I had gotten more of.
My drop shot.
That I think you are going to really love.
The drop shots are sick with the paddle.
It's just like bloop.
And as defense gets better for all these players from the backcourt, we need a drop shot more. But yeah, I want to say about Jaume. Sickest third shot drops ever. Loved the chirping with him. But the thing that was the most impressive about playing with him, other than his like insanely positive attitude, like we are really similar in some ways, like loud and like always complimentary of our opponents when they win a point, fiery and want to win. But the one thing that was the most impressive about him was he learned how to play mixed doubles on the job. Like he was learning. He was like literally
10% better every day.
Every match he was 10 to 15% better because he was getting mixed doubles reps in.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, do that? Okay, done.
And at one point he kind of made fun of like, I'm like a puppet. I hear Jill's voice in my head right before I hit every single shot. Hit it here, do this, go here. I had him take like every single third, and we got to the kitchen line. I'm not just saying this, like 85, 90% success rate. We got to the kitchen.
Yeah.
Which is so high and so hard to do unless you have just amazing thirds and fifths. And he does. He takes the ball earlier than anyone I've ever seen. And Zane just did a little like Instagram video on, I'm starting to take my thirds earlier, because if you take them earlier, the person's still running in. They're still running in from their return. So you don't have to hit a great third shot because they're still running in. Just get to the ball earlier.
Totally.
And I want to start practicing that like literally tomorrow.
Awesome. Love it. Jaume, what a joy. So excited that he is on our team for at least 2 more events. coming up in this season? Any other Jaume-related activity?
No, we had so much fun playing together. We lost one, and we shouldn't have. I don't know. Shelby, I hate you.
I mean, in
I
fairness,
love you. You played great.
And this is a testament
Stefan played
to
great.
what you were saying earlier about like complimenting your opponents. But he ripped a shot as hard as he can
At
right
Shelby.
at Shelby Bates, and her paddle basically just happened to be
She got it
there.
back.
And it went bloop.
She
right
played like
back
3
over.
of the best points in our last 3 points of the match.
And he
Kudos
was
to her.
like-
Hate her. No, just kidding.
Applauding on his
No,
paddle,
she played
giving
great.
her-
Stefan
giving her props.
played really well.
Yeah, no.
Props to them.
They,
But that
they
was
showed
our
up.
only match that we lost. We'd been, So our records: Kyle and Sarah went 0-4 as a mixed team, which was like
Hard to overcome.
could not believe that. Like we were really surprised. Kyle Yates overall was 3-5 with us, and then he played Premier, where he got to play with
the Utah Diamonds.
where he got to play as a sub and he played with Annalie Waters and Thomas Wilson. He went 0-2 there. And then Jaume's record. So I was 5-3 total. Jaume was 6-2 and Sarah was 2-6. So we're really like all of us unhappy with how things played out. We made it to the
lit a
quarters. We finished 6th, but like, are you kidding me? How did we not make it deeper? And I've only played MLP and got in 2nd place, then won it and got MVP. And I'm going into this feeling like this is a stronger
best team ever,
a much stronger team than my previous team. And we, didn't do it. We didn't bring it home.
Yeah.
And I've been doing a post-mortem and just thinking a lot about it. And I think Kyle may have made a mistake, one of the bigger ones you can make in sports and business and perhaps in the game of life, underestimating your opponents. Challenger is deep. I'm not sure how much training Kyle or Sarah had been doing before. I know Kyle expressed right afterwards that he wants to train even more now going into the next one. But the levels have risen. Like simply attacking the girl over and over in mix, like that's just not going to work. Look at how well Anna Bright handled in the finals, like all of her counters, and so did Rachel Rohrbacher. I mean, the girls are good. Like Megan Fudge, she's got some of the best defense in the game. Like if Kyle's trying to attack her over and over and over, like she's ready for it. She wants
expecting it. Hit it harder. And there is a thing to me about like hitting it hard at someone who's expecting it.
Yeah.
All they have to do is put their paddle out. The off speed kind of surprising pseudo speed up dinks sometimes are even more powerful,
effective.
right?
Yeah.
And
like getting people to miss a
working
dink.
people around. Yeah. Setting up plays.
Patience. And I think let's really look at this in the semifinals of Premier. To talk about how deep the challenger field is, look at the semifinals of Premier. You had Christian Alshon from Challenger previously, Allison Harris, a substitute, Tyra Black previously from Challenger, Rachel Rohrbacher previously, undrafted, unknown, completely new. Vivian Glozman played one Challenger event and moved up. Those are all names in Premier semifinals in the top 4 teams.
Yeah.
And 3 months ago, they were either unheard of or in Challenger. So to go into Challenger thinking, hey, it's just Challenger,
It's over.
That's over. That's done. Like this is a deep, deep field.
Yeah. And teams were actually doing their research.
And we actually got to the point where we showed up as a team 3 hours before a quarterfinal match to try something different, because at that point, Kyle and Sarah had went 0-3 on their mixed. And we were like, should we try Kyle and Jill versus Jaume and Sarah? And so we tried that a couple times, and Kyle was like, yeah, I want to play with Sarah. We're both more like conventional players. And I felt like there was this not so veiled kind of insult, like I don't play conventional pickleball. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, dude, there's no such thing as conventional pickleball anymore. Like you want to go to the court and play conventional pickleball, you're going to get killed. There's not conventional.
Is also where chemistry comes in.
Yeah. Like I just think there's not conventional or unconventional pickleball. There's just win.
Effective or ineffective pickleball.
Exactly.
And adjustable pickleball.
Exactly.
Going into a match with a strategy and not adjusting it when you're losing is a losing strategy.
100%. Like you cannot be stubborn. You have to be able to change your strategy. So I don't think there's conventional or unconventional. Here's what there is. Win. Just win.
Yeah.
And
will
you
the
know
ball
who
in
said
the
it
hole,
best?
as we would say in golf.
What?
Will the ball in the hole, as we
Make
would
it
say in golf.
happen.
Like, just do whatever you have to.
Make it happen.
Want it more.
You have match
Yeah.
points. Make it happen. Convert
it
it. So I thought Rachel Rohrabacher literally said it best. They interviewed her after the semifinal win, and she responded to a question that was like, you know, what were you thinking? How did you pull this out? And she was like, I was just thinking win.
Yeah. No,
Win,
in the finals,
win.
between their matches even, I was like, okay. After they pulled off the 0-2, and then they got the mixed match, they won both mixed matches, and she was like, going into the Dream Breaker,
Just win.
Just win.
And I think, you know, my mom really said it best. You want to win at tennis? Get one more ball over the net. Like, simplify it.
Yeah.
Simplify it.
Yep.
Get
One more.
another ball over the net. Watching the finals of the Orlando Squeeze match where Anna Bright and Andre Daesky were down two match points in their mixed match, and Christian Alshon had put away after put away, and Anna and Andre are both getting their paddle on these impossible gets. They're making these impossible gets. They're just finding a way to get a ball over the net. One more ball over the net.
And expecting it. I think a lot of people in amateur pickleball can look at the pros and be like, oh, I can't do that. I can't, hit that much spin. I can't get to that shot. I don't move that fast. But I think so much of it is just literally expect yourself to.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was sitting right on the edge of the court in the back left corner, and the other team would hit what looked like an angled put away, and you somehow got your backhand stretched out and got one back,
from, like,
like
side to
literally
side.
2 feet from me on the sponsor banners.
But that's just it. You
practically.
just
It's
have
like,
to
just do it.
find a way to win, especially with the scoring format that makes it so easy for the trailing team to come back. I mean, there's like, I'm sure Real Clear Stats will come out with the figures on this, but it felt to me like 75% of the matches had trading match points, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Each team had a match point. So
Yeah,
you
and sometimes
just
in matches-
have to find a way to convert those.
Absolutely.
And Kyle and Sarah had their chances. It wasn't like they went 0-3 that first day and didn't have a chance. They had 2 out of 3 chances to convert. And that has nothing to do with conventional or unconventional. And I think in MLP, I'm starting to learn, like, play aggressive, but don't play stupid. So it looked to me like we just played stupid, like going for Ernie's and getting foot fault violations. Why are we doing that? Going for ATPs that are either being missed or defended easily. Like, you know, I might not play conventionally, but I play calculatedly. And I think I have a plan and I know what I'm going to do going into a match, and then I execute against that plan. And that's what Dave Fleming, you know, arguably the greatest of all time coach and general manager of Major League Pickleball, he did so well for my team with Dallas. He was our GM and coach for Dallas. We always had a plan going into each one of the games. Mixed.
And everyone was behind that plan.
And every single player on the team, even the 2 that weren't on the court, knew what the plan was in that game. And guess what? When we had a timeout, if we were to change the plan, both players on the court left the timeout saying, okay, Dave, we understand the plan. And for my team, it was like the opposite. It was like we would take a timeout, you know, Kyle would have an opinion on something, Sarah would have an opinion on something, I would see something, Jaume was kind of like listening, maybe offering some stuff. And then we'd leave the timeout and I'm like, what just happened? Did we agree on a course of action? Did we not?
This?
Like,
and now I'm seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge issue. Huge issue.
So moving forward,
be better.
Yeah.
Be better.
And it was a
Clean
wake-up
up.
call, you know. It's like I said, like go into the next challenger feeling like you've got to train hard leading up to it. You've got to bring your best, and you can't let any silly points go. You know, one more ball over the net, you know,
Clean it up.
adds up.
Work harder. Be better. Clean it up. Like, we're not there to showboat and do cool shots. Like, we're there to find a way to win. And these results are literally unacceptable to me, to my team owners. Like, bet your butt we're coming back really, really hungry in 30 days.
Yeah. I will say the team that I thought was your biggest formidable foe is the team that came out ahead.
Yeah,
and that was the SoCal Hard Eights.
Good for
so
them.
props to them. They were that team that drafted towards the bottom, so got like kind of 2 early picks in a row, picked 2 high-level females, and followed that up with.
So there was a trend where we finished 6th and we
had the 5th pick.
We had the 5th pick. We chose me, then we chose male, then we chose female, then we chose male. And if you look at what the commonality was in the teams that finished 1 through 5, they each chose their first 2 rounds of picks were females. They wanted 2 strong females.
Yeah. In Premier, it ended up being the team that went FMMF, right, with Anna, and then Riley, the opposite, MFFM.
Yep.
And I do think there is something there. Now we're done with drafting and done with all of that.
Well, something in Challenger lended?
Well, I think what it is the female drop off is quicker. So as you get into Challenger, it's more important to have that almost premier female. And the males are deeper. Obviously, Jaume was our 4th round pick, and he's a stud. And right before him was Andre Mick. He's a stud. And Pat Smith didn't get drafted. He's a stud. And Callan Dawson's still out there.
So the drop off with the females
is so. Yeah, it's a little bit different, that 4th round female pick situation.
And then, one thing that stood out, if we could switch gears a little bit, to me watching Anna Bright in the I think it was the semifinals. Yes, the semifinals. With the squeeze was kind of the commentating. And I want to talk about the commentators for a second. And I try really hard on this podcast, I know you do too, to not sling mud. And it's not even something we have to try. Like, it's just not really in our DNA to be like, we need to accrue viewers by like gossiping. Like, no, we try and always differentiate ourselves by the fact that we try and offer real information that's educational so listeners can learn and laugh and spread the joy of pickleball, because pickleball's joy.
Absolutely.
But I do want to call out Dom Catalano, who is an announcer, commentator, because he said to Anna Bright after her huge semifinal win, Anna, playing next to Andre, he played really big those final 3 to 4 points, and you kept the ball in play.
And Anna, playing next to Andre, he played really big those last 3-4 points. You kept balls in play that were absolutely incredible. What's it like playing next to him?
And she says in her total humble, funny, and direct way, wow, Dom, that was pretty disrespectful. Andre got big, and I just kept the ball in play and played decent. And he actually rolls his eyes at her. And if we can play that clip, I want to play it here.
It's pretty disrespectful, Dom. Andre got big. You kept balls in play. It was decent. No, it was it was a lot of fun out there.
And kudos to Adam Stone, who was also commentating the match and has eyes. And maybe because he's a millennial or just a decent human being, he kind of calls it like it is. At 15-20 in the score, he says, wow, the key to the last 2 points has been Anna Bright is locked and loaded, knowing one more ball is going to come back, and she finishes it. 1.5 years ago, I played Nationals, and I was playing Split Age, and Dom interviewed me and said, wow, Jill, so what was your decision with you guys? What was your thinking with you playing the left side with Paul Olin? Pretty bold, huh? And if we can find that clip, we should play that too. And I remember it took all of my willpower not to scream what a sexist question that was. Not only sexist, but kind of a dumb question. Your
duper is higher.
My duper is higher. And
you have better mobility.
You have to look at matchups. We were playing Ryler DeHart and Kim Jade. So she's going to be across from me. Ryler's going to be in front of me. And I have a great backhand roll. So it's not only a sexist comment, it's a dumb comment because it's all about matchups. Riley Newman plays the right a lot with his female partners. Anna Bright played right. Irina played left this week.
Totally. I saw Colin playing the right and Megan playing the left when they played against Tyler Leung, who's a lefty. And maybe even the whole week. I didn't see all of it, but definitely different strategies. I mean, Riley talks about it all the time, all the reasons he likes playing the right. So the saddest part to me is that Dom can ask that same question without it being sexist.
I know.
Just by asking about the strategy.
Tell us about the strategy with the sides.
Without it being so insulting. So hopefully he learns from that. I think that was probably a little bit of a wake up call. I think his eye roll was his own form of being embarrassed.
I hope.
But yeah, I mean,
and then I was listening to, I always watch my film afterwards. So on the plane coming home, I watched all of my matches, not just mine, our whole team, to try and figure out what went wrong. How can we be better? What are the areas for improvement? And in our match against the Frisco Pandas, I was playing against my former MLP teammate, Krista Getcheva, and Pesa Tioni.
Oh, Mashers, not Pandas.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Milwaukee Mashers. Yes, it's been a long week.
The blue ones, not the black ones.
Yes. And Chad Edwards was commentating on that match, and like I felt like all they could talk about and all he could talk about was like the number of screams he anticipated by Braverman, the chirping by Braverman, and how Pesa was getting aggravated and chirping back. And it harkened back to my finals in Daytona when Pablo Tejas got in a fight with a fan and cussed out a fan and was given a red card, yellow card, what color card?
Like mild card. Can't remember which is which.
And the internet was like, oh, that was all Jill Braverman's fault. She was chirping so much, she drove him nuts. And it's like, guys, men, listen to the way that sounds. Like, I'm not responsible for your actions. Like, I am not an act of God. Only you can control your actions. So when Chad Edwards, like the entire match, can only talk about, oh, Pace is getting fired up and acting, abnormally. He's usually so demure. He's getting fired up because of Jill. It's like, I just want to scream. Like, Jaume's as fired up as I am. We're chest bumping, but like a guy does it and he's fiery. A girl does it, she's chirpy. She's a bitch. She's a C word. She's annoying.
Yeah.
And I'm just like so tired of the double standards. So one thing leaving MLP was like, the Dom Catalano, Anna Bright comment. And then just listening to Chad literally talk about me chirping and my quote screams. Like, I'm fiery. I'm unapologetic about it. It's who I am. And it's going to come out of me even more when I have a super fiery partner like Jaume.
It's your gasoline. Everyone runs on different gasoline. Figure out your own.
Figure out your own.
I think the other thing about that is just that, so many girls are so boring, and guys, so many people are so boring.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be like, this is so fun to watch.
Yeah, and I love seeing, fist pumps and screams, and Shelby's out there having fun. And she brings it out of Allie, and Allie was getting, some screams in. I saw Rachel Rohrabacher getting loud, and Anna Bright, like they were fiery together. Zane is always throwing like unique, quirky, like, fun zingers across the net. Like,
and so it's like, what's important, right? Like,
so
what's
excited about?
What's important, right? What is Chad not saying? He's not saying like all the stuff that really matters. Oh, it's great that every player on this court can be so fiery, but look how after Jill gets tagged, she and Pace are laughing at each other and giving like a thumbs up.
Giving the applause on the paddle.
Look at how after a crazy point, they're applauding on the paddle saying, awesome point. Look at how when Jaume flies across the court and misses a ball, how she's like, awesome, keep going for it. Like, we can focus on more of the good stuff and the cool stuff. And I feel like that gets lost.
Yeah. What should they actually be critical of? Like, what's the worst thing someone can do in professional pickleball on camera, on court?
I was thinking about that 100%. Like, I think abusing the referees, being disrespectful to the referees. Like, I hate that. I hate seeing that. Fighting with the fans. Like, I hate seeing that. And in fact, I'm lucky that I haven't seen that almost at all. And I think the night before Thursday, our matches, our general manager, Corey, said to us, right, in our team meeting, I want no fighting tomorrow with fans.
Yeah. I was like, whoa, that's the last thing I was ever worried about. Who is fighting with fans?
Right.
Like, I was fully expecting the end of that sentence to be refs.
Yeah.
That's who I don't want to see fighting with, and obviously not fans. I mean, obviously not fighting. Like, chirping is not fighting. It's game. It's gamesmanship. It's gasoline. Like I said, it's motivation. It's fun.
Yeah. I think like not putting your hand up after you hit someone or get a really lucky let cord. I think like that's not good sportsmanship. I always try to like put my hand up.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of players that still cheer after a let cord.
Yeah.
I mean, certain let cords I think are maybe
sometimes I cheer and then I'm like, oh, sorry.
Like, I'm excited we got that point, but also, oops. So anyway, we can I think move on from that. But yeah, it's definitely like people just don't get it figured out.
I'm just getting tired of like the double standards.
Totally. So do you want to talk about what we heard in that final match about somebody's boyfriend cheering in the stands?
Absolutely. So funny sidebar on the finals against DC. So Riley Newman's team and Orlando Squeeze, Anna Bright's team. Our friend and host in Atlanta texted us these words. She said, when the Squeeze were down 0-2, James Ignatowicz was sitting in the seat directly in front of me and he started taunting Riley. Then his two buddies joined in. It was pretty brutal and funny, if I'm being honest. And it big time got under Riley's skin. In fact, Riley walked over after winning a point and said, shut the F up. I'm going to win this. Watch me. There were a couple more exchanges and then James got reprimanded actually by someone at MLP and he had to stop, but it was too late. The train had already left the station. The drama was kind of amazing. At one point he had said, my girlfriend stands to make $25,000 on this match, which means I make $25K. I don't care about that dude.
So funny. I mean, yeah, grow up. I mean, it also does kind of harken back to a little bit the Miami match at Daytona.
Yeah.
And like, there's some over the line to me when the taunting is directed at like, you're going to miss.
Oh, yeah. When Jeff Warnick's yelling miss when Krista's returning.
Like, luckily this person on the opposite team is really playing for us, insinuating that like you're playing so bad that you're doing me a favor. Like that's brutal. Over the line.
Yeah.
But like getting fiery after a point is won is pretty much fair game. I think the only thing not to insult is like things that people can't change about themselves, like you're fat or you're tall or you're ugly. Like that's not cool. But like when it's you hit this shot there, they hit that shot there, fired up about this, no, don't go there. I mean, that's just fun. That's just part of the game. And I hope that never leaves. I know a lot of people talk about like how, handcuffed you feel playing tennis and how reprimanded you are.
At one point, Daniel De La Rosa, my former teammate on Dallas, had quite a physical altercation after a match with Spencer Smith. This was reported by The Dink. And there was something like, kind of like watching a train wreck. There was just like something, or a car crash. There was something amazing where you like couldn't take your eyes away from it. And it harkens back to hockey. And I hope pickleball like does not lose that. Not that I want like people to be fighting.
Yeah. But I don't need to like pull jerseys off and punch people. But it is interesting with
you
hockey.
You wouldn't see it in tennis.
Somehow like just never gotten rid of that. I think they've kind of tried, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of that in hockey. And I think like just one step above, we're 14 feet apart in the kitchen. That's close enough. I don't think anyone needs to be in anyone's face.
Ruck solar packs. Do you have someone in your life who's impossible to shop for? The Ruck Solar Pack is definitely our favorite pickleball bag. It's also sleek, fits your laptop, your paddles, and it has a solar panel to charge all devices.
Like a solar panel, like
cool
who comes up with that? That is the coolest idea ever. It literally charges your devices from the solar pack while you're playing pickleball. I mean, does it get better than that? I don't think so.
You can visit ruckpack.com. That's RUKPACK.com. You can use code JillyB for 15% off your next order.
RUKPACK.com and use code JillyB for 15% off on your next order.
So who were you impressed by this MLP? And then I'll give you, in terms of players.
Obviously, I was impressed by Rachel Rohrabacher. Like we said originally, like we had our eyes on her. She played in MLP. I mean, she played in the PPA Atlanta.
I played against her in PPA Atlanta. And I said, we're hitting too many balls to her mixed partner.
Yeah, hit to the guy.
Yeah. Hit to the guy. He's worse than her. She's amazing.
But also, in fairness, the top two teams via Duper were DC and Squeeze. So no shock there. And then on the other side, it was Seattle and SoCal, and Seattle made it to the semis and SoCal won. Props to the Night Owls for getting there. But yeah, no, definitely felt like Wes Burrows sort of found himself this week. I've always felt like
he had a baby.
He looks
this week,
like such a good player. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. That's the thing about like PGA Tour players. Their wife's like in delivery and having a baby, and they like win. It's always they like are winning the tournament because they know they need it.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Megan got so many balls back that I thought were
Megan
just
Fudge.
Fudge, yes.
I hit a backhand at her at like 19 all as hard as I could. Lina popped up this volley, and I was coming in from the baseline, and I like flew through the air and hit it with every ounce of energy. And Megan like handled it back, and we lost the point. I was like, how did she just do that? There were like 3 shots where I was like, how did Megan just
get that back
and hit that angle and do that?
And obviously we've always been a fan of Megan. She played with Jill at PPA Atlanta. Also Allie Phillips.
I was impressed by
I literally
Allie.
was convinced in the draft that someone like got the Allies mixed up and meant Harris, and they picked Phillips.
That's
and then
funny.
when we played her, I was like, oh, okay. I guess this girl has some game. She's got a lot of power. She seems like has a good attitude.
By Allie wasn't, I think, what people would obviously see. What impressed me about her, we all see her hard swinging forehand and her great counters. But what impressed me the most was Lee Waters, the Fives coach, obviously gave them a strategy, Shelby and Allie, going into our women's match. And they really stuck to it. Absolutely. And there were so many times I tried to get Allie to basically funnel the ball back to me. Like I would go cross court to her, and I'm used to a girl being like, okay, I'll go cross court with Jill Braverman. And that's how I set up a lot of my shots. And she just would not do it. She never took my bait. I couldn't insert myself. And it just felt like they were really good at sticking to a strategy. And I think she's got a really high pickleball IQ. And that's what I was impressed by.
Yeah. And she's still like 20, 18, 19, pretty young. So she's probably got some improvement percentage to come for sure. So excited to see more and more talented females show
and
up.
The other thing I noticed about her too was whereas I think Shelby had missed a few standard dinks, and that's no knock on Shelby, we all do. It felt like the shots Allie missed were like shots on goal.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
She took shots.
Right.
They weren't unforced errors.
Correct.
They so much as they were like, hey, let's try one. Okay, that one didn't work. Okay, try another. That one did work.
And I'm starting to realize in MLP to increase your odds of success, and maybe you could say this for regular tour events too, but especially with the rally scoring, it's like minimize, get as close to 0 as you can your unforced errors, but take a lot of shots on goal.
Yeah. Yep. And you got to assume that the teams that just sit kind of waiting for someone else to make the attack, there's a lot of people that play that way and plan on their counters. In a lot of ways, you're not controlling the narrative, so to speak.
I mean, Allie misses because she's trying to take her head off. That's a good way to miss the ball.
Yeah. Do you want to...
I was really impressed by Anna Bright real fast, you know, other than just how she handled, obviously, the Dom comment. Just so impressed with her leadership. She's the youngest person on that team, and she was the captain and leading it.
You're probably right. I think about that because we think of Anna Bright as such a dominant figure. Yeah.
You know, she worked for me at Duper. We hired her. Steve and I hired her at Duper. And you just knew instantly meeting Anna that she was special. She could do anything she wanted to do, whether that's presidency of the United States of America or being the #1 pickleball player in the world or being an incredible product manager in a technology capacity. She is just, I just can't say enough good things about her maturity, her grace, her sportsmanship, her leadership qualities.
It was
just so impressed by her every week.
One of the commentators in the finals was talking about how, DC has Kyle as coach and that the Squeeze don't have a coach, but
they do.
They do have a coach, and it's Anna Bright.
Yeah.
And she's a great teammate, and you can see her energy. It's visible, and I just want to see more of that.
Yeah, and I was obviously heartbroken not to be chosen on that team. I was like, I've played with Andre before, and I thought I played pretty well with him. I just beat Anna at the PPA San Clemente with Sarah Ansbury. She was playing with Megan Fudge. And I used to play a lot with Zane, but that was like way before I started training full time, and he hadn't really seen me play. And I was like,
four paddles ago.
Yeah, that's like a perfect team for me. And I was like crestfallen when I didn't get chosen for it. But like, hey, good for them. Like all I felt watching it was like they made the right call with Rachel. She looked so good for that team, played
So
amazing.
confident, so unflinching.
And I'm happy for all those players. Those are all great human beings and great players.
Absolutely.
They deserve it.
Zane might be close to taking over as MLP GOAT now from Irina, because he's got 3.
So the other person I'm impressed by is maybe the real GOAT of MLP, Eva Radzikowska, who has, if you look at her number of victories,
divided by her number of attempts.
Yes, exactly. Zane has had more attempts. Irina Tereshchenko has had more attempts.
And her one failure was loss in the semis. And then appearance in, of course, the super finals, which they won. So if you add the super final, she's won 4 out of 5.
Amazing.
So,
Amazing.
Ava, yeah. She's
so impressed.
Ageless. Literally. She might be a vampire. She is so fit.
It's the cinnamon.
It's the cinnamon.
She's a cinnaholic.
She is. I'm going straight to the store and getting some hots.
And it seems like, you know, the freeze at 18 is gone. So if you don't know this, there used to be a double freeze. You had to win on your serve. You would freeze at 20, and then the trailing team would freeze at 18, which really enabled a situation for the better team to come out on top because you reverted back to side out scoring. Like,
yeah, you're still getting that point back if it's not to win. So it's not total side out scoring.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are like, comebacks. But a lot of times people come back to a tie at 2020 or at 2020, 21-21. But a lot of times the person who got there first still ends up winning.
right.
And they like to forget that.
That's correct. But with this removal of the trailing team freezing at 18, it's like anyone's game. And I don't know if that would have changed my draft strategy or if that changes draft strategies. But if they're going to continue without a freeze at 18, you better draft players who at down match point, you know, down 2021, are not missing a return, or it's 20 all, they're not missing a serve. They're just like thriving 15 to 20% better under severe pressure because all these matches are going 2020, 2022. I mean, Kyle and Jaume's first match went 27-25 and their next one went 26-24. They were down 4 match points in the first, 3 match points in the second. And that's not like uncommon. I think all of these matches, 90% of these matches had that.
I had a 30-minute conversation with Lee Waters, who I happened to have overheard something that she was saying to someone else about the scoring system. And I was like, just level with me. Like, what are your thoughts and what would be better? And she was like, I don't have a solution, but I do think that like it's hard for Annalie to win in this format with the teams and with the scoring. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure you are right that what it has done is bring the bottom up and the top down and make for closer matches.
Yes,
and it's achieving its goal. And it is
entertainment.
Problematic in the sense that sometimes it's a little harder for the better team to get ahead, win, and pull out the victory. But it doesn't mean they don't. And it doesn't mean that it's not achieving its goal. I do know someone, I can't remember who, was saying they could go back to win by 1, which was what it was season 1 in side out scoring. It was side out scoring to 15, win by 1. And that might kind of achieve both with this scoring system. But yeah, it's a little bit of a heartbreaker too, because you're like, oh, just that 1 point. And
so
it's
then
over. What's
the solution? Just first to 21 and you have just literally first to 21?
It would be the side out scoring once you get to 20, but a 1 point victory, it's over.
Okay.
So
I do hope there are some changes. I thought it was,
and there have been every time,
jarring.
And I hearken back to Tim Parks. Props to Tim, owner of the SoCal Hard Eights, the champions of Challenger, that he said, you know, if we're not trying things that we take away again, we're not trying to change enough, right? You should always change stuff that you're like, let's roll that back. That didn't work. So props to MLP for always trying to experiment.
And also, I think we need to talk about just 2 last things, how much play is pool dependent and how much team chemistry really matters. You know, Wes Burrows was dropped last year. Pat Smith was, or not last year, excuse me. At one point in time last season, Wes Burrows was dropped. Last season, same thing, Pat Smith was dropped. They end up on a team together and they make it to the semifinals. And then you have Megan Fudge, who had not made it out of pool play last season with any of the teams that she was on. And she makes it to the semifinals, right? That team made it to the semis. And you just look at a lot of these teams, And you see how important chemistry can be. Like there's someone or something that is bringing out the best in those players in that team composition that was not the case for them last season.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's right for you? What is filling in your cracks? Like you, Jill Braverman, as a dominant left side girl in women's doubles, what kind of a player you need is different from what Megan Fudge needs. Is different than what Bobby Oshiro needs or Vivian David needs, two very high level in their field right side girls. So teams are starting to figure it out. And I do think a lot of what's happened in the draft has depended on this like 2 minute, oh crap, it's our turn and who's left. And now we're going to really see strategy over time because you're not going to be so rushed. But also that the pools, right?
The pools make such a big difference.
Like I don't know that we see Arizona Drive getting to the semis if they were in a different pool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's like you still have to be able to beat anyone usually to pull out the full victory.
How about this? We didn't.
I thought the sliders were going to do better.
You know what else is important? Coin tosses. We didn't win one coin toss.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is huge.
So I gave. Yeah, I mean,
it's in a normal event, right, or a normal tournament, you're just choosing serve or receive and which side. In MLP, you are picking 5 things, right?
5 things.
Serve, receive, or side, which at this point, like, might as well not even be a thing because no one cares about anything other than
reacting to the mixed lineups,
right?
And then you can choose as the 5th thing the gender you want to put out first,
right? Which is
we had 4 coin tosses and didn't win one.
Yeah, and then of course whoever gets to react to mixed doesn't react to the dream breaker gets reversed. So there's a lot at stake in that coin toss. So we watch these matches and they kind of breeze over sometimes, like who picked their mixed lineup first. But so much of that
they breeze over that. It's so important. I wish they didn't.
I did think that was weird in the finals that Riley did not play in that 3rd match, the first mixed lineup, right?
I did think that was weird. Yeah,
and I think they did dictate. I'm pretty sure.
I want to go look at that.
Yeah, we'll fact check that and I'll put it in the.
It's interesting because I've had a lot of people say like, how on earth did like your team Dallas win last season? Like, I wouldn't think of that team as being so strong on paper. You know, Daniel De La Rosa, Ben Newell, subbing in for Brandon French, Krista Getcheva, like that doesn't strike me as like a winning formula. And I was like, maybe not on paper, but we had really good chemistry. Like we never left a team meeting not on the same page. I don't think any of us had egos. Like really, like if anything, we were all kind of like making fun of ourselves, like very self-deprecating. Yeah. We were always the first to walk off a match and be like, I messed that up. That's on me. We had a really great coach in Dave Fleming. So we just, moving forward for the New York Hustlers, like we've got to figure this out. Like we have to.
Yeah. Yeah. You will. So yeah, any other MLP reactions or thoughts?
I could just continue to feel like there's nothing else like it and the atmosphere. I wish the matches for Challenger would have been a little more crowded, right? Like in San Clemente, it felt like
we were feeling the effect of what does it even matter anymore?
Yeah.
Like they're not fighting their way in, and I hope for the sake of the ownership groups that they fight for some kind of meaning.
Yeah. Even like the commentators also on some of the matches, not to keep harping on commentators, like one of the women commentating in the quarterfinal match, which is a big deal. It's a quarterfinal, called a Bert, a Bernie, combined Bert
funny
and Ernie and made the word Bernie, and I'm just like, what is going on? So it just felt like maybe
they are starving of commentators because they are all coaches now.
That's really funny. But it just felt like some of the Challenger matches were like not as populated.
Yeah, I felt like in San Clemente, like there were people watching every match. Yeah, and I don't know if that's just because it was like a hometown thing for us, but it felt like the other Challenger matches also had crowds. So I don't know. We'll see. We're back to SoCal for the next 2, which is exciting. This is the only MLP we had to get on a plane for. Mm-hmm. And luckily we got home safely. No bags lost. So super fun week. Atlanta did not disappoint. Props to all the winners, and excited for the next one. And don't ever forget,
Pickleball is joy. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
This Pickleball Life is a Tomahawk production, 100% organic, self-made, and homegrown. Music by K-Dubs, editing by K-Dubs and Jilly B. Check out pbgods.com and use code PBLifers for 10% off your next order. Do you have a question for Jilly B? Email us at thispblife@gmail.com to be included in future episodes. Don't forget to click subscribe.
This Pickleball Life.